Pokemon, oh yes, we've all come across it at some point in our lives, either directly or indirectly, with it being the world's largest franchise. But for those of us who once enjoyed their games, whether you started all the way back in Generation 1 with Red and Blue, or with a more recent title, it doesn't take long to realise that the game series is getting somewhat stagnant. And that's where the indie game scene comes to our rescue, and a recent game release by the name of Cassette Beasts has been blowing former Pokemon players away. Hello, I'm Hale, and this is my review for Cassette Beasts. Developed by a team of just 3 people at Bytten Studio and published in April of 2023, Cassette Beasts is a monster collecting RPG that was designed for an adult audience that grew up on the Pokemon games themselves, and seeks something new and innovative, but yet familiar. The odds are, watching this video, that you've encountered other monster collecting or monster taming RPGs in the past and called them Pokemon clones, and some of them do rightly earn that title, copying as much of that successful formula as they can, and in some rarer cases, treading the very fine line of copyright with the monster designs. Cassette Beasts, however, isn't any of that. In fact, one of the developers has even stated in interviews that they didn't originally set off with the intent of making a monster collecting RPG. The story starts off with you arriving on a mysterious island, washed up on its shores, and quickly finding yourself being shown the ropes in order to defend yourself by the lovely Kaylee, a fellow companion that you'll get more of later into the game. You quickly discover that in Cassette Beasts, you don't command creatures to fight on your behalf. Instead, you transform into the creature yourself by placing the cassette it's recorded onto into your Walkman and hitting play. Yes, a Walkman. For those of you younger in the audience, it is a portable cassette player. Well, that is assuming you know what a cassette player is. You're probably asking what it is anyway. Think of it as an older generation mechanical MP3 player whereby the music is stored on a tape. I might be getting old. Also, did I mention you can't accidentally defeat a monster that you're trying to record? Concerns about being considered old aside, this musical theme doesn't just stop with the so-called catching mechanic. The move slots on your monsters are actually stickers that are placed onto the cassette. The in-battle user interface is designed around a Walkman's controls, and I haven't even mentioned the game's killer soundtrack. Yeah, it's that good, complete with both vocal and instrumental tracks that really ramp up the mood when you fuse with your partner. If you're into video game soundtracks, this is definitely one to buy. Oh, and by the way, it's also available on cassette if you want to dig out and repair that old cassette player. That's something I literally did in the run-up to the game's release. So, how does it differ from the typical Pokemon game? Well, first up, we have a 3D open world designed with Metroidvania elements, filled with puzzles to solve and overworld abilities to unlock. The first art design is clearly not 3D, it is a 2.5D pixel art style that takes me back to the old Generation 5 Pokemon games like Black and White, with animated sprites to keep the battle scenes alive and lived in. Monsters can have more, much more than just the 4 moves, which can easily be moved between the compatible monsters by simply peeling the stickers off of the cassette tape and sticking them onto the new one. The type matchup system follows a cause and effect relationship. No more double damage for setting grass on fire. Instead, that grass is going to take burn damage for a number of turns. The moves themselves consume a resource that replenishes at a rate of 2 per turn, with the weaker moves consuming none and the strongest moves consuming as many as 8 at a time. Oh, and there are some brilliant moves in the game that do nothing more than add character. One of my favourite moves is the move that I have on Kaylee, whereby at the start of every battle, there's a chance she'll tell a bad joke. That's literally it, just bad joke. Showing up to a world-ending boss monster to tell jokes just brings a smile to my face every time I see it. Oh, and let's not forget the fusion system that I alluded to earlier. You can fuse with your NPC partner at any time and transform into a whole new monster. This isn't like with games like Shin Megami Tensei, whereby the fusion is decided based upon the typing, alignment, etc. Nor is it like the Pokemon games whereby you are limited to a mere handful of pre-selected combinations. Instead, it combines the two characters' stats, totaling them up together, and uses a totally unique sprite that was generated using procedural generation. This means that every single monster combination in the game has a unique sprite design. That's quite the feat when you realise how many thousands of sprites there are in the game as a result. But don't worry, this procedural generation only applies to fusions. All of the regular sprites were all designed the old-fashioned way. And while we're talking about unique sprites, remember how in Pokemon, if you got lucky, you could encounter and possibly catch a shiny Pokemon with a slightly different colour palette? Well, in Pokemon, they tended to be just collectibles, as their in-game use remained identical to their regular coloured counterparts. Cassette Beasts, however, changes this up too. Here, the shinies are called bootlegs, and every monster has a bootleg that corresponds to every type in the game, getting new colours, moves and typing with every bootleg, making these all that much more sought after. Some monsters in the game can only even be obtained by obtaining certain bootlegs and remastering them. Remastering in this game is the game's name for evolution. Oh, and levelling up bootlegs is also an excellent way of obtaining rare moves with bonus effects. One other area that is more than worthy of mention is grinding, or the complete lack of it. In Pokemon, it became the standard over time to breed monsters for very specific traits and stats, then train them up to obtain even more specific traits and stats, whilst grinding them all the way up to level 100 with the traditional level up system. Here it's so much simpler, because you the player are the one transforming into the monsters. It is you and your NPC companion that does all of the levelling up, and the other companions available to you throughout the game level up in the background to ensure you never have to go through the pain of grinding them for hundreds of levels. The developers want you to have fun, and this game is infused with fun. Yes, there is still a level up system for the individual monsters, but this is scaled in such a way that you'll not even notice it in the late or end game. Gosh, there's so much that can be said for this game. For me, it is everything I wanted out of a Pokemon game over the years. More moves, more fusions, better music, story, reduced grind, classic pixel art style. But there have to be limits in these videos with regards to how much of this game I can spoil. Generation 5 was my favourite Pokemon Generation release, with Black 2 and White 2 represents the height of the franchise. And Cassette Beasts feels like a natural successor to those games, building upon the best parts of those games. Yes, it does currently lack any form of multiplayer, aside from the 2-player couch co-op, and thus any form of competitive play, but the developers have pledged to include this in a future update. So what it does have, however, is randomizer settings that come complete with the ability to input your own seed. Trust me, that'll make sense to someone out there, but having put over 66 hours into this game, a game that I don't even put out regular content for, it has most definitely earned my attention. I am tempted to do even more videos for this game and others like it in the future, if I can figure out a video format that works for my channel. Despite having completed the game and its more recent DLC, I still find myself returning for the odd couple of hours here and there, looking to see what the next fusion boss is going to look like, and what the next bootleg I encounter is going to be. So where can this game be played? You can currently get it on the major platforms Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and of course on Steam for PC, as well as the Xbox Game Pass. All of the footage you are seeing throughout this video was captured over on the Steam Deck, whereby the game runs flawlessly. So if this game has captured your interest, the odds are it's available on your platform of choice. So give it a go today or get it wishlisted for when it goes on offer the next time around. It is worth noting, of course, that the game does have some performance issues, which are most notable on the Nintendo Switch, as I found whilst researching for this video. But over on the Steam Deck, these performance issues are minimal and rarely take away from the game's immersion. I suspect if you have an Xbox, PlayStation, or simply a more powerful computer than my Steam Deck, then the performance issues won't be an issue. And don't forget that this game was developed by a team of 3 people, just 3 people. So performance issues kinda come with the territory with this game. So that is my review for Cassette Beasts. Are you thinking about getting the game? Maybe you have another game suggestion for me to review. Let me know in the comment section below. In the meantime, feel free to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos on indie games such as Cassette Beasts. I do have more Cassette Beast videos in the works, and we'll be following up with a video on Anode Heart when I've gotten a decent amount of the story completed. I also have a number of videos on a sci-fi mobile game if that happens to be your jam. But until the next video, play casual.